I'm Mary Aileen Buss. I'm one of the librarians at Long Beach Public Library. Oh wait, there's one more person waiting. Let's get her in and on. And while she's coming in, I'm going to move the camera over so you guys can see my table here that I've got set up to work. Okay, so we're going to start with the tissue paper flowers. You need 2 sheets of tissue paper. They can be the same color or 2 different colors. I'm using yellow and white. If you only have 1 sheet of tissue paper there, start by folding it in half and then cutting it on the fold so that you have 2 sheets. Okay, and you want to lay the 2 sheets out as exactly on top of each other as you can manage. And then we're going to start by folding the 2 of them together in half and creasing the fold. And then we're going to turn it and we're going to fold it in half the other way, both of the sheets as exactly matched as you can, and crease that fold. And then you're going to find the corner that doesn't have any folds, that's just the individual corners, and you're going to pick up the very top layer and you're going to fold it back at an angle so that this edge matches the back edge of your fold here. Gives you a right triangle, and you're going to put that down. And this rectangle over here that's not covered by the piece of paper, the triangle that you just folded back, you're going to cut that rectangle off. What this does is it gives you a square pile of tissue paper. And you can flatten out that triangle now. And you've still got folds over the back edge, so you need to cut that fold. You can either cut it while it's still folded, or you can open it out and cut it along the crease, whichever is easier for you. So let me give people a moment to catch up. I know I'm going kind of fast. And what you wind up with is 8 squares of tissue paper stacked on top of each other. And mine are sliding around. I'm going to try to get them to stay together, stacked as neatly as you can. So your next step, you fold over one edge about 1 inch or a little bit less, and you crease it well. And then you turn your whole stack of paper over and you fold over again the same amount and crease that. And then you keep going back and forth, folding over about 1 inch until you run out of paper. You're going to wind up with a fan fold. So you just keep folding over and creasing and folding over and creasing. And if you hold it in the middle, you have kind of a double fan. Now you need to fasten it in the middle. Stapler works really well. Staple it sort of at an angle so it's not too wide. If you don't have a stapler, you can tie the middle with a piece of yarn. Just tie it firmly around the middle. So you've got it like this. Okay. Does everybody that's working on it have their fold fastened in the middle, their fan? Okay, the next step is we trim the edges in a curve, the ends in a curve. Just a nice rounded curve. This is the edges of your petals on your flower. Both ends. So you get a nice curve on either end. And then you reach into the middle and you sort of open out the fan both ways so that it's like this. It won't stay open out at this stage, but that's all right. It doesn't have to. Now this next bit in some ways is the trickiest part, because what you need to do is pick up 1 piece of paper at a time and do it slowly so you don't tear it. and make sure you're just getting one piece. Come all the way around and pull it up. It should stand up here towards the middle, and then go around to the other side and pull up one piece of paper. Mine's trying to stick together. Let's see if I can get one piece. And pull that up around in the middle. The sides should overlap a little. And then when you've got that, you do the next sheet of tissue paper, one at a time, and just go back and forth from one side of your flower to another, one sheet of paper at a time. You want to remember to swap sides every time so that it stays balanced. And remember to do just one sheet at a time. Slow and careful so you don't rip it. And my paper likes to stick together. There we go. I think I forgot to alternate the last time. Separate out the single sheet. It takes a little bit of time because tissue paper is fragile, so you have to go slow and easy. And the last few, of course, you can't pull up all the way because you want it to flare out a little bit. Almost there. Let me get the last bit over here. And the bottom sheet, you just sort of curl up a little bit. Doesn't need to lift really. And there we have a flower. So I'm going to do exactly the same again. And if I'm going too fast or you're lost or stuck or have a question, somebody holler. So 2 sheets of paper, 2 sheets of tissue paper. And I'm going to fold it in half, both sheets together.
Okay, go slow.
Right, so I'm folding them in half, both sheets together, matching them up carefully. Okay. And creasing the side.
Hace otro. Distinto. No del mismo. Porque algunos no pudieron hacerlo. Porque estaban viendo demasiado.
Okay, Beverly, you got that? You ready for me to go on?
Yeah, my 2 sheets are not the same size. So I have to fix that.
Yeah, they really do need to be the same size.
Right, I'm using 2 colors here that are really pretty. So I want to use, but I'm going to trim off the extra.
Right. If they're not precisely the same, it doesn't matter a great deal, but they do need to be pretty close.
Right. So I'm going to trim that off. Okay.
Okay. So you lay the 2 on top of each other and you fold them in half. as exactly as you can and crease the edge.
Increase the edge.
And
Okay.
I see we had one more person coming in, so we'll wait a moment. Okay, so tissue paper flowers, the 2 layers of tissue paper together and creased in half one time, and then turn the paper and fold it the other way and match it up nicely and crease that in half.
So open that, can you open that up and,
Yeah,
okay.
I started out with 2 sheets together and I folded it in half and creased it along that edge. And then I turned it and I folded it in half again and I creased it along that edge.
Okay.
And now you have to turn it back. You get the corner where there's no folds, just the edges of the paper. And you pick up the top sheet and you fold it back at an angle so that this edge here matches the fold at the back. And then you can crease it down a little bit.
Oh.
And then you have the rectangle at the end that's not covered by the piece of paper that you just folded back, the triangle. And that rectangle at the edge, you need to cut off.
Okay.
If anybody's trying to follow along with paper napkins, I will show you later exactly how you do that. That's next. But it's exactly the same as this, except you don't have to do the original folds because they're already folded and square.
Okay.
Okay, so we got the paper and we cut off the rectangle at the edge so that it winds up square. And then we cut out the fold. You can either open it out and cut along the crease, or you can just, I find it easier to just cut it straight across while it's still folded, but whatever's simplest for you.
Aha. Okay.
Yep. So you've got your stack of squares here, and you get them as even on top of each other as you can manage. And then you take one edge and you fold it over about an inch, maybe a little bit less, and you crease it well. And then you turn it over and you fold it back the same amount, and you crease it. And you just keep going back and forth like that to make a fan fold. How you coming with it, Beverly? You doing all right?
Fine.
Okay,
That was helpful.
good. And then when you've got it in your fan fold, you grab it in the middle and you need to staple it if you've got a stapler, or tie it around firmly with a piece of yarn if you don't have any staples. Right in the middle. And then you open out your fan, both sides of it, as well as you can. And you carefully start picking up one layer at a time.
Don't you make the scallop?
Oh yes, thank you very much. I always forget the scallops. Thank you very much. It won't look right without that. You can either do the curve like I did on the first one, or this one. I'm going to make a different shape petal. I'm going to cut up at an angle to a point.
Oh.
On both ends. You can do it either way. And I can see that I didn't get these layers matched up quite right, so it's going to be uneven on the ends, but that's okay. Flowers aren't perfect. So now, after you so kindly reminded me of the step I skipped, I'm going to open. Yeah, no, that's, I always, at least half the time I forget that step, and then it doesn't look right because it's all squared off on the ends still. So we're going to open it out, and we're going to lift up one layer at a time and sort of ruffle it up. Go slow and easy so that it doesn't rip. And I hope your paper is more cooperative than mine is, because mine likes to stick together. Try to alternate sides so that you don't have one side all up and the other one still flat. So go get the, and my paper does not want to cooperate. Because sometimes it's just like that.
Well, this is working well.
Good.
Barry, look at this. Make very pretty arrangement for a table for a party.
Yep. And the size, just if you want them smaller, you just start with a smaller piece of paper and maybe do the folds a little narrower. But I don't know enough about flowers to know what kind of flower this one with the spiky would be. This yellow and white one with the rounded ends, I think looks like a carnation maybe.
Yes.
But I don't know what this is. It's a something. Okay. So I'm going to show you how you do this with napkins if you don't have tissue paper. It doesn't work quite as well, but it works. Okay, so these are already folded, so you don't have to do the initial, but you do have to cut through the folds. And with the napkins, I find it easier to lay them out flat and just cut along the creases. So I'm going to do that. And if any of you are working with napkins, you do whatever works best for you. Because I'm not going to be dogmatic about it. So the idea of all this folding and creasing and uncutting is that you wind up with 8 squares of the same size. So if you've got another way that works for you of getting 8 square pieces of tissue paper of the same size, you do what works for you.
You could use a doily. It would be a round doily, would be really pretty.
Probably, yes. I haven't thought of that. I haven't tried it. I'm not sure it would be, it might be too thick and stiff. You'd have to experiment, but yes, that would be very pretty if it would work. Okay, so I've got my napkin squares. I've cut all the edges apart and I'm just going to fold it over. This is smaller, so I'm doing a smaller folds. Instead of a full inch, I'm doing half an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. But again, I'm just going back and forth in the fan fold. Now, you can't staple this. I tried, and it's too thick for a staple. So you have to tie it around the middle. I like to use yarn. If you don't have yarn, you can use string or twine. You could probably even use thread. Now I'm just going to tie it firmly in a nice square knot, or maybe I'm going to use a granny knot. I don't know. I've lost track. Doesn't matter. Tie it firmly, and then, whoops, and then I'm going to cut the ends off because we don't need those hanging out. It would actually look kind of pretty if I'd used a different color yarn here to make the little center where the, I don't know, the pollen is. But, and then we trim the ends as best we can with this. Again, a lot of layers of paper here. It doesn't want to trim very well, but we'll do the best we can.
It would work well for gift wrap too.
Yes, it would make very good gift wrap.
Beautiful.
Make a little one and just put a little flower on. It would be gorgeous. Okay. And the other problem with napkins is that they just don't crinkle and hold the way the tissue paper does. But again, you pull it up one layer at a time and let it crinkle up. When I do it, I usually wind up with sort of gaps at the side because it just doesn't come around in the same way and stand up in the same way, but it works. These are the cheapo napkins. I haven't tried it with the more expensive ones that are a little bit stiffer. I don't know if that would work better or worse. If one of you is doing this with the good napkins, maybe you can show us and we'll see.
Eileen, how did you trim it again?
For the paper, I cut the folds and then I just did a rounded curve on the ends after I fastened it in the middle.
Oh, we're doing a rounded curve? Okay.
Yeah, rounded curve, or you can do it straight to points if you'd rather. It makes a different kind of flower, but you can do it however. The website I got the original from had about 3 or 4 different ways you could trim it to make different flowers, but the only ones I remember are the rounded ones and the pointy ones.
You could also make cuts into it and it would make a very fluffy with little strips.
Yeah, that sounds very pretty. Whoops, my layers of the napkin are sticking together too. When I first started doing one of these, you know, the first one I did, I was trying to think, well, how do you make the sides stay together? But you don't have to do anything to make the sides together. They just fluff up around. Like I said, the napkins don't work quite as well in that regard, but they kind of do. So there's a white carnation.
Pretty.
Pretty.
So, oh, we've got another half hour left. So let me do one more. And for this one, I'm going to take what I clipped off of the first one, that rectangle, and I'm going to open it back out. And I'm going to do the same thing we did the first time. I've got the 2 layers here that I clipped off. And I'm just going to fold them in half. And actually, yeah, fold them in half and fold them in half again. And then I'm going to find the corners with no folds, and I'm going to fold one top layer back so that this edge matches the back fold there. And I'm going to cut off the extra, which in this case is almost longer than the square I've got. That was a long, skinny piece. And then I'm going to cut out this fold. So this time I'm starting with very small squares. It's going to make a little flower. So I'll get these as matched up as I can. And I fold over, and this one's so tiny, I only want about 1/2 inch folds. And I'm going to staple that in the middle. Might even be able to do this square on. Yep. And I think I'm going to do pointy edges on this one again. And then I'm going to open it out and start pulling the layers up. This one doesn't have as many folds as the other because it was too small, but I think it'll still work. If I can keep the layers separate, pull them up one at a time and not rip them.
It's pretty.
That's And there we are. This one's almost too small to come around to the sides properly. It's trying to be open at the sides, but it kind of works.
It looks like a water lily.
Yeah, it does. I was just thinking if we didn't use so many pieces of paper, we could almost make one that looked like a daffodil, just pull the middle up and then leave the outside sort of around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's different kinds you can play with.